It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. Pete Francis joined by Willie Witten. Today, our special guest is legendary blues rock guitarist Tinsley Ellis, who's releasing a new album, Devil May Care, on January 21st. Tinsley, thanks so much for coming on the show.
It's great to be on.
So your new album coming out this month. I understand you wrote 200 songs for this album. Tell me about that, because that's insane.
Well, it all started when we were forced to cancel our tour for the last album. The last album was called Ice Cream in Hell. And in March, we were already on the West Coast, halfway through a 60-show tour. And my agent said we had to come home. And it's like, what? That's right when the pandemic hit. And I drove back all the way from Northern California to Atlanta, not a short drive, and got here and kind of stared into the abyss for a week or two. And then I decided that if I didn't want to lose my chops, I better get some kind of a schedule going for playing, because, 40 years into touring, I pretty much played every day. And so I just started treating the 8 a.m. to noon hours, roughly into songwriting sessions, and came down here into my man cave, down into my basement lair, and just started writing songs. And that is what became the Devil May Care album.
So 200 songs, and I'm guessing that they're varied. The 10 songs on this album that you've selected, they're varied as well. But I noticed when I compare it to your last effort, Ice Cream in Hell, and maybe I'm taking this the wrong way, it felt like Ice Cream in Hell was a little more of a Chicago blues sort of feel, where this, to me at least, is far swampier, funkier. It had a different vibe to it. Am I misreading that? And if it is correct, did you do that intentionally, or is that just what came out of the songs that were written?
No, it wasn't really intentional. That's just kind of what came out of the songs that were written. We between Bruce at Alligator Records and we involved the fans in it too by posting a song every week online, Wednesday, Basement Tapes, as an homage to Dylan and the band, of course, and posted those songs that got a reaction from not only the record company and from me, and some friends and fans, but also the people online. And they sort of helped us choose the songs. And it turned out that the album kind of had a little more of a, dare I say, classic rock influence to it, with Allman Brothers and Mike Bloomfield, Electric Flag, and Johnny Winter, Jimi Hendrix kind of thing. And that's my wheelhouse, especially when you're talking about Georgia music, being here from Atlanta. I'm never going to be B.B. King or Magic Sam or Muddy Waters, as much as I want to try to be that. My wheelhouse, my birthright, is to pretty much play the Georgia music, which all roads lead to Dwayne and Greg Allman, Dickie Betts when it comes to that.
Now, Tinsley, I understand you pulled out some guitars for this album that you hadn't played in a couple of decades. What was kind of the inspiration behind that?
Well, I had all my amps and guitars all around me here, and I kind of put them all. I've got all these Fender amps right behind me here, and the guitars, I lined them all up and fired up the tape machine. Or, of course, not really a tape machine; it's a computer. We know that, right? And just sort of wrote it. And I still do that. The tour doesn't start till January 21st, and I'm still down here writing away. And I tell you, I'm going to miss it being on the road, but I've got to get out there and beat the bushes with the new album. So I had all my instruments and my, of course, listening to music too, as well. Sometimes I get inspired, put on Al Cooper, Mike Bloomfield Super Sessions live or something like that. An album I hadn't listened to in 40 years. Put that on, and everything's on the computer nowadays, streaming. God forbid I walk over to the album collection or anything, but it's just so easy to put it on through the little speakers here, and I get inspired and start writing songs.
So about songs, as long as we're talking in that vein, Pete and I were talking just a bit before the show. Man, that's a lot of songs. You've only selected 10. There's 190 songs sitting out there. Tinsley, what becomes of the other 190 songs or thereabouts?
some of the songs are pretty weird, to tell you the truth. I don't think they'll ever see the light of day, but they entertain me. I would say probably I probably have two or three pretty good albums of original songs left over, and I'm still writing. So, a writer writes, and prior to this, I never really had time. I was always on the road, and then it would take me longer to decompress when the tour was over, kind of lay around for a couple of days being a couch potato. But Lord knows there was a lot of time to do it. And so the songs are of questionable quality. I mean, nobody questions the quantity of the songs, but the quality is sometimes a little out there.
So Tinsley, you're getting back on the road here for the first time since the pandemic started. Over your career, obviously, you've played a lot of gigs. Do you have any memorable road stories from your time touring?
Oh boy, do I ever. I mean, I got the greatest times was when I was able to, open for my idols, and then they get me up on stage to sit in. That's my all-time favorite. And not to be a name dropper or anything, but let me drop some names.
Yeah, you've been asked.
We want to know. Tell us.
Right. Come on.
Buddy Guy and Albert Collins, Lonnie Mack, Otis Rush, Coco Taylor, James Cotton. Then the rock bands too, Government Mule, Allman Brothers Band, Derek Trucks, the Wood Brothers. Those are some great times, getting up there. And if somebody had told me when I was a teenager that I'd be jamming with the Allman Brothers on stage, not once, but half dozen times, I wouldn't have believed them. Those are the greatest times. But there's some weird times too. I remember once we were hired to play at a what do you call it nowadays? It used to be called a nudist colony, clothing optional resort, I think they call it now.
Clothing challenged.
Yes, clothing optional. Of course, I wore extra clothes that day, but we played there. It was called the Nudie Blues Festival, and Bernard Ellison was on the concert as well. He's my witness. He'll tell you. But we got there and we talked about it for months, laughed about it, and on the way to the show, my bass player said, "Why are you driving 20 miles an hour on the interstate?" I said, "I'm scared." And we got there, and wow, it was really weird. And it's not what you think. It's not a bunch of swingers or anything. These are people that just really enjoy taking their clothes off and listening to some live music. And that was weird. And we sold T-shirts there and CDs. And at the end of the night, it got kind of chilly, so we sold every T-shirt we had. But that was a trip. And there's been just so many weird ones that we played before. And I've heard every possible thing. People come up to the stage and make the most bizarre requests. They'll say, "Play that song that's on the radio now." And I go, "Well, what song is that?" And they'll say, "Play that song by that guy."
Oh, that guy, of course.
Song by that guy that's on, and they're so sure that I'll know what they're talking about, but they can't quite put their finger on it. So, just when I think I've seen everything, I'll hear something else.
So Tinsley, this is your 20th album, unless I'm incorrect. So in that time of recording, you've been doing this for decades now. How have things changed as far as the album recording process? From start to finish, we're talking about writing the songs, finding the people to play, recording it, marketing, touring behind it. What has changed, and what has changed the most? What has changed for good and what for the bad?
Well, the first album I made was ironically 40 years ago last month. And we did the album in one night. It was when I was in a band called the Heart Fixers, and we ran up a studio tab of $105 direct to 2-inch tape.
Wow.
They didn't even need to mix it, after the fact. They just took the tape and cut it off, and 12 songs. So you put them in order and splice them back together, and that became the album. And I tell you, it doesn't sound that bad, really, especially for $105. And then I've made albums for $115,000 and stuff. And what's the difference? Well, about that much, really. And the stress factor was pretty high, making them in the big studios too. So now we make albums. I make them up at a place called the Rock House with Kevin McKendry in Nashville. He has his studio. I have my studio. It's his room right here, but and we don't have to watch the clock, and there's a beauty in, I can come down here and be Jimi Hendrix in my pajamas down here in the basement with the tape rolling if I want to. And that's kind of good. So the do-it-yourself factor is really high now. The lo-fi thing, and we have bands like the Black Keys to thank for that. All of a sudden it becomes more about the energy rather than the fidelity of the music, sort of like rockabilly or blues or something. The other thing that's happened is when we first put out albums, they were albums, they were platters and vinyl. And then vinyl became bad. And it was CDs. Then CDs became bad, and now it's vinyl again. And we've got the new CD, Devil May Care, on vinyl, which is really cool. Not just vinyl, but red translucent vinyl, which people can buy at tinsleyellis.com. Commercial announcement there, autographed, I might add, and we'll mail it to you. And so we've come full circle. So don't throw away your CD player yet. It might just come back.
Well, I've heard some people talking about pushing CDs as being cool again because they have been kind of put down.
You heard it first. Yeah, who knows? I mean, really, what's old is new. And but one thing is for sure, and I do believe this: you can't keep a good song down. Unfortunately, you can't keep a bad song down either sometimes. But it's and now there's streaming, and you can buy music on the internet or listen to it. So that means the store never closes, and the store never runs out. You don't have to leave your home to get music. It's never been better for the listener. So if it's never been better for the listener, then it's never been better for the creator either.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. I've never heard it said that way before, Tinsley. Pete and I have this discussion a lot. I think everyone agrees it's better for the listener. The disagreement might come in for the artist, but it sounds to me like, hey, whatever is good for the consumer is good for you guys as well. Do you find that there are some spots that have had changes, whether it's streaming or touring, that have become harder, even though maybe better for the listener?
Well, I get these statements I've been doing this for 40 years. I got 20 albums out, so I get a lot of statements from royalty, things like that, and streaming. And a funny one happened recently. I was so excited. I called Alligator Records. I got a streaming report, 35 million streams for one of my songs. Wow. So we looked it up and I said, what is this? I can't remember the name of the platform. 35 million, that's a lot. And so I said, what is it? And they looked it up and they said, well, it seems to be like the Chinese version of TikTok. I go, okay, well, all right, well, that sounds good. Get a younger crowd, be kind of hip. And they said, well, what did it pay? And I said, I looked at it, it was $65. So that's a lot of 35 million, $65. So anyway, sometimes it's a little silly, but we have all different methods of delivery for our music. That is a pretty extreme one. And chances are, if it's a short little video like that, they probably just use 20 seconds or something like that. So they have ways of beating the system.
Sure. Do you have a favorite, as long as we're talking about streaming mediums, do you have a favorite medium on which to listen? I know some people will take out vinyl as if it's almost a religious experience. Some people don't care. They like it streamed.
If I'm sitting down, if I'm serious about it, I will put on a vinyl record and listen to it. If I'm in a car, vinyl doesn't seem to work too well in a car. So I put a CD on and then I could jump around on it. I listen to XM radio, of course. That gets me the new stuff. Who is that? And run off the road trying to look to see who it is on the little screen there. And then what I'll do here, guilty as charged, I do the YouTube thing. In fact, I just YouTubed a song called "Fool for Your Stockings" by ZZ Top right before this interview. I believe it was on their DeGuelo album. And then I found some live versions of them doing it too. So you can see what their fingers are doing, you know, what's Billy Gibbons doing there. And so all different ways to listen to music. It's never been better for the listener.
Tinsley, looking back at your career to this point, what do you feel are the defining moments for you in your career?
Well, it's been a long, hard climb to the middle. I'll tell you that much. But I think the turning point in my career is the first time I got with Alligator Records. I've been with them 3 or 4 times now, but got with them in 1988. And prior to that, I was in a band called the Heart Fixers, and we put out 4 albums and toured up and down the East Coast. But when I got with Alligator Records in '88, all of a sudden I was playing all over the world, you know, and we even played in the Canary Islands one time. Didn't see any canaries, but we played down there. And you know, so that was really the turning point. There doesn't seem with kind of roots music like blues and stuff like that, or jazz, or, you know, real country music, there doesn't seem to be any magic wand. You know, it seems to take a really long time. I mean, you can either make it big when you're in your teens and you look kind of like a teenage underwear model. You can make it big then, but then if you don't make it big then you got to wait till you're like John Lee Hooker or something like that. So I'm approaching that era right now. So I would say getting with Alligator was a turning point. And I've been with a bunch of record labels. I've been with a bunch of booking agencies and managers, and they've kind of passed me around like a joint, you know, and each took a hit of me. And really, there doesn't seem to be any magic wand. You know, the music business is about 5% inspiration and 95% perspiration. You know, you got to go out there and really work for it.
Well, Tinsley, do you have any final thoughts before we let you go? The new album, Devil May Care, out January 21st. This has been really great having you on.
Thanks. Well, I always like to direct people to tinsleyellis.com, not just so I can sell them stuff, but so they can see where we're playing. And there might be some fun pictures and stuff on there too. And, you know, go out there and support live music. I feel like we're at the end of this pandemic thing. And of course, I'm an optimist, but I really feel it. I feel it coming on. And it's going to be like the Roaring 20s again. Not that I remember the Roaring 20s, but I've seen pictures of it. It looked pretty exciting. And so I think it's going to be like that again. You know, there's no substitute for live music. I love recorded music, but live music is where it's at.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, go check out the album. That's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Tinsley Ellis and Willie Witten, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.